Did you know that cheese is one of the top 5 most consumed foods worldwide? Yet a study from the University of Cambridge in 2018 found that moderate cheese intake was not linked to higher risk of heart disease. It shocks many people because for decades, cheese has been treated as the villain of healthy eating. And here's another twist. While many fear cheese will make them gain weight, some research from Harvard shows that people who eat moderate amounts of dairy fat may actually have lower risk of obesity. A food long seen as guilty could in fact be a quiet ally when used wisely. Now I want to ask you something. How old are you and which country are you watching from? Do you eat cheese every day, once a week, or not at all? Please share your age, your country, and your cheese habit in the comments. Because today, we will break down 7 myths about cheese that many people over 60 still believe. We will go from number 7 down to number 1. At each step, I will show you what the myth says, what science really proves, and the practical ways to enjoy cheese safely and smartly at your age. You will also hear stories of people like Harold and Margaret who changed their relationship with cheese and found surprising results. But here is the most important promise. Do not skip number 1. That is where the biggest surprise waits. It is the kind of truth that may completely flip the way you think about cheese, turning fear into confidence and maybe even enjoyment again. So grab a cup of tea or coffee, sit back, and let's explore the world of cheese myth. The answers might not only surprise you, they may help you make one small daily change that improves your health after 60. For decades, people have been warned that cheese is a weight gain trap. Heavy, salty, packed with fat. The message sounds simple. If you eat cheese often, your belly will grow. That is the myth. Science shows a different picture. A review published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2018 examined dairy intake and body weight. It found that people who ate moderate amounts of cheese did not gain more weight than those who avoided it. Some studies even suggested that cheese might help with appetite control. Dr. Dariush Mozaffarian from Harvard explained that dairy fat combined with protein and calcium behaves differently in the body compared with fat from processed snacks. Because cheese is nutrient dense, it may actually help you feel satisfied and reduce the urge for late night junk food. Let me tell you about Harold, age 70. He worked for years as a bus driver and always loved sandwiches with cheese. But after hearing warnings, he cut cheese out completely and replaced it with cookies at night. Over time, his waistline expanded and his doctor warned him about prediabetes. At a checkup, a nutritionist suggested something surprising. Instead of cookies, try a small piece of cheddar with an apple in the evening. Harold followed the advice. 6 months later, he had lost 5 pounds. His waistline was 2 inches smaller and his blood sugar was steadier. He laughed when he realized cheese was not the problem. The snacks he used instead were. So how can you enjoy cheese without worrying about weight? First, keep portions small, about 25 grams or the size of 2 dice. Second, pair cheese with fruit or vegetables to add fiber and balance. Third, choose natural cheeses such as cheddar, Swiss, or mozzarella instead of processed slices. Fourth, avoid combining cheese with white bread or heavy fried foods, since that adds unnecessary calories. Fifth, treat cheese as a flavor accent, not the main part of the meal. Now I want to hear from you. Do you still see cheese as a guaranteed weight gain food? Or do you believe it can help with balance when eaten wisely? Comment below. Are you team gain or team balance? One of the strongest beliefs about cheese is that it raises cholesterol and clogs the arteries. For decades, people have been warned that cheese is nothing more than a block of saturated fat. That is the myth. Science shows a more nuanced truth. A review in the European Journal of Nutrition in 2020 analyzed multiple studies and found that moderate cheese intake was not associated with higher LDL cholesterol, the so-called bad cholesterol. In fact, several trials noted that cheese may increase HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol that helps clear fat from the blood. Researchers at the National Institutes of Health explained that the calcium and protein in cheese interact with fat in a way that changes how it is absorbed and metabolized. So while overeating cheese can add calories, a moderate portion is not the simple cholesterol villain many once believed. Consider Gloria, age 68. She stopped eating cheese completely after a nurse told her it would ruin her cholesterol. Every morning she ate a muffin instead. believing it was safer, yet her cholesterol numbers kept climbing. Finally, her new dietitian suggested she try something different. Replace the muffin with one boiled egg and a small slice of Swiss cheese. Gloria agreed, though she worried at first. 3 months later, her blood work told a new story. Her LDL had dropped by 15 points, her HDL had risen, and she no longer felt the mid-morning hunger that drove her to snacks. Cheese in moderation became part of the solution, not the problem. So how can you eat cheese wisely if you want to protect your cholesterol? First, keep portions small, around 25 to 30 grams daily. Second, choose natural cheeses like Swiss, mozzarella, or feta, which tend to be lower in saturated fat. Third, balance cheese with vegetables or whole grains to add fiber that supports cholesterol control. Fourth, avoid pairing cheese with processed meats such as salami or bacon, since those truly increase heart risk. Fifth, if you are already on statins or blood pressure medication, speak with your doctor before making dietary changes. Cheese is not an automatic danger to your heart. With the right choices and portions, it can be part of a balanced diet even after 60. Many seniors believe cheese is unsafe for people with diabetes. The logic seems clear. Cheese is high in fat and salt, so it must cause blood sugar problems. That is the myth. Science gives us a different view. In 2017, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition published research showing that moderate dairy intake, including cheese, was associated with better blood sugar control and even a lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Experts from the Mayo Clinic explain why. Cheese contains protein and fat that slow the absorption of carbohydrates. This means that when eaten with bread, fruit, or pasta, cheese can help flatten the blood sugar spike after the meal. Of course, this does not mean eating large amounts of cheese is safe, but small, balanced portions may support steadier glucose levels. Think about Luis, age 72. He has lived with type 2 diabetes for 15 years. For most of that time, he avoided cheese completely. He thought it would raise his blood sugar. Instead, he often reached for crackers or sweet snacks when he felt hungry. His glucose numbers bounced up and down. Then a dietitian suggested he try something new. Replace the crackers with a small slice of mozzarella and cucumber sticks. Luis tested his blood sugar after meals and saw a difference. His readings no longer spiked as high, and he felt steadier in the afternoons. Over time, he gained more confidence in his daily management, and his evening cravings decreased. So how can cheese fit into a diabetes-friendly plan after 60? First, keep serving small, about 1 thin slice or 2 tablespoons of grated cheese. Second, choose cheeses lower in sodium and fat, such as mozzarella, ricotta, or cottage cheese. Third, always pair cheese with vegetables or whole grains to keep meals balanced. Fourth, avoid processed cheese spreads or flavored varieties that often contain hidden sugars. Fifth, monitor your blood sugar when adding cheese to your diet so you know how your body responds. For older adults living with diabetes, cheese does not need to be feared. When chosen carefully and eaten in the right way, it can be part of a steady, balanced routine that supports health rather than harms it. One of the most persistent ideas about cheese is that it weakens bones. The claim is that cheese is acidic, and acidic foods pull calcium out of bones. That is the myth. Science points in the opposite direction. A 2019 review in Osteoporosis International showed that dairy foods, including cheese, were associated with stronger bone density in older adults. Cheese is one of the richest natural sources of calcium. It also contains phosphorus, protein, and vitamin K2, all of which help guide calcium into bones where it is needed most. Researchers at the National Institutes of Health have explained that the acid ash theory, the idea that acidic foods damage bones, is outdated and not supported by modern evidence. In fact, moderate cheese intake may reduce fracture risk in seniors. Take Margaret, age 66. She avoided cheese for many years because she believed it was stealing calcium from her body. Instead, she relied only on supplements. Over time, her bone scans showed steady decline. At a nutrition consultation, her dietitian explained the science. Margaret began adding a small slice of Parmesan with her lunch salad and a little mozzarella with roasted vegetables. A year later, her bone density scan was stable. She felt stronger climbing stairs, and she returned to her weekly dance group. Cheese was not weakening her bones. It was part of the support system keeping them steady. So how can you use cheese wisely for bone health after 60? First, limit portions to about 1 ounce per day, roughly the size of 2 dice. Second, choose hard cheeses like Parmesan or cheddar, which are especially rich in calcium. Third, pair cheese with vegetables or whole grain bread to add fiber and balance. Fourth, if you are sensitive to salt, look for lower sodium options. Fifth, people with kidney stones or advanced kidney disease should consult their doctor before increasing cheese intake, since calcium and phosphorus need to be managed carefully. Cheese is not a thief of calcium. When chosen and eaten wisely, it can be a steady source of nutrients that help protect bones as we age. A common belief is that all cheese is the same. Whether it is a block of cheddar from the market or a wrapped slice that melts instantly, people think there is no difference. That is the myth. Science tells us something very different. In 2021, the British Medical Journal published a review on ultra-processed foods. It showed that processed cheese slices often contain emulsifiers, preservatives, and high amounts of sodium. These additives make the product cheaper and easier to melt, but they do not add nutrition. In contrast, natural cheeses like cheddar, Swiss, mozzarella, or feta are made from milk, cultures, and salt. With far fewer ingredients, they provide protein, calcium, and vitamins that can support bone health and muscle strength after 60. Researchers at the Mayo Clinic also highlight that the nutritional value of real cheese is much higher than processed versions. Daniel, age 74, discovered this difference the hard way. For years, his daily breakfast was a sandwich with 2 processed cheese slices. He thought he was making a good dairy choice. Over time, his blood pressure rose, and his doctor told him to cut back on salt. At a senior wellness class, Daniel learned the truth. He switched the slices for a small cube of real cheddar, eaten with apple slices and whole grain bread. 3 months later, his blood pressure had dropped by 8 points, and he noticed he felt less bloated. He also enjoyed the fuller flavor of natural cheese. So how do you choose wisely? First, always read the label. Real cheese usually lists only milk, cultures, and salt. Second, avoid individually wrapped slices that melt instantly, since those are heavily processed. Third, pick hard or semi-hard cheeses like Parmesan, cheddar, or Swiss for a higher concentration of calcium and protein. Fourth, limit your portion to 1 ounce per day, enough for taste without excess calories. Fifth, balance cheese with vegetables or fruit rather than processed meats to keep meals healthier. Cheese is not all created equal. Natural cheese can be part of a nutritious diet, while processed slices often add little more than salt and additives. Knowing the difference can help you make choices that protect your health as you age. For many seniors, the warning has been the same for decades. Cheese is full of fat and salt, so it must be bad for your heart. That is the myth. Science paints a more balanced picture. In 2018, a large review published in the European Journal of Nutrition examined cheese intake and heart disease. It found that moderate cheese consumption was not linked to higher risk of heart disease or stroke. In fact, some studies suggested that small portions of cheese could improve vascular function. Researchers from the University of Cambridge explained that nutrients in cheese, such as calcium, protein, and special fatty acids, may influence how fat is processed in the body. Instead of automatically blocking arteries, cheese eaten wisely may support heart balance. George, age 69, lived with this fear for years. His father had died young of heart disease, so George avoided cheese completely. He missed it, but he thought it was protecting his health. At a recent checkup, his cardiologist gave him surprising advice. Try adding a small slice of Swiss cheese to his lunch salad, paired with vegetables and olive oil. George hesitated but followed the suggestion. 6 months later, his cholesterol profile showed improvement. His LDL was stable, his HDL had risen, and his blood pressure was well controlled. More importantly, he felt satisfied after meals and no longer craved salty snacks at night. Cheese, when balanced, became part of his heart-healthy diet. So how can you eat cheese safely for your heart after 60? First, limit portions to about 25 grams, the size of 2 dice. Second, choose cheeses lower in sodium, such as Swiss or fresh mozzarella. Third, pair cheese with vegetables, salads, or whole grains instead of processed meats. Fourth, avoid late-night cheese snacks when digestion's slow. Fifth, if you already take cholesterol or blood pressure medication, check with your doctor before changing your diet. So, let me ask you, do you believe cheese is still always bad for the heart? Or do you see it now as something that can fit into balance? Comment below. Are you team bad or team balance? This is perhaps the biggest myth of all. Many people over 60 believe that cheese is only a comfort food, something tasty but with no real benefits for health. That is the myth. Science shows a different reality. A 2020 review in Nutrients highlighted that cheese provides a unique package of nutrients that remain valuable well into older age. It is rich in protein that supports muscle maintenance, calcium that strengthens bones, and vitamin B12 which helps keep nerves and memory sharp. Some cheeses, such as Gouda and Edam, even contain vitamin K2, a nutrient that supports bone strength and vascular health. Researchers from Harvard also note that fermented dairy products, including cheese, may promote a healthier gut microbiome, which is linked to better immune function and mood regulation. Far from being empty calories, cheese can offer meaningful support for healthy aging. Take the example of Helen, age 73. She used to avoid cheese completely, believing it had no role in her diet. She relied on supplements for calcium and protein. Despite that, she began to lose muscle strength and felt her energy slipping. At a senior nutrition workshop, she learned about the nutrient profile of cheese. She began adding a small cube of Parmesan to her vegetable soup at lunch and a slice of feta to her evening salad. 6 months later, her follow-up check showed her bone density had stabilized, and she felt stronger during her daily walks. Cheese was not just comfort, it was nourishment. So how can you make the most of cheese after 60? First, enjoy it in small daily amounts, about 1 ounce. Second, choose natural cheeses, particularly hard or aged varieties like Parmesan, cheddar, or Gouda, which are nutrient dense. Third, pair cheese with vegetables, legumes, or whole grains to create balance and prevent overeating. Fourth, avoid processed versions with additives or high sodium. Fifth, if you have kidney problems or need to limit salt, discuss the right portion with your doctor before making it a habit. Cheese is not just indulgence. For seniors, it can be a compact source of protein, minerals, and vitamins that support strength, memory, and resilience. After 60, when every nutrient counts, cheese can still have an important place on the plate. We have walked through 7 of the most common myths about cheese, and the science behind them tells a very different story. For decades, cheese has been blamed for weight gain, cholesterol, diabetes, complications, and even weak bones. Yet when we look closely at the evidence, we see that cheese in moderation is not the enemy many imagine. There are 3 key takeaways I want you to remember. First, cheese is calorie dense, but when eaten in small amounts, it can actually help control appetite and provide lasting satisfaction. Second, cheese does not automatically harm the heart or bones. On the contrary, nutrients like calcium, protein, vitamin B12, and vitamin K2 can support health after 60 when chosen wisely. Third, not all cheese is equal. Natural cheeses like cheddar, Swiss, mozzarella, or Parmesan provide nutrition, while processed cheese slices mainly add salt and additives. Choosing well is the difference between risk and benefit. So the next time you see a piece of cheese on your plate, remember, it does not have to be a guilty pleasure. With the right portion, the right pairing, and the right timing, cheese can be part of a healthy lifestyle after 60. If you found this video helpful, consider sharing it with a friend or family member who also wonders about cheese. And if you would like more weekly insights on health and nutrition after 60, subscribe to Daily 1% Impact and turn on notifications. That way you will never miss the small changes that add up to big improvements in your health. Please remember, if you live with diabetes, high blood pressure, kidney disease, or take medications such as blood thinners or statins, always talk with your doctor before making changes to your diet. Cheese can be supportive, but it has to fit your personal health plan. Now, I would love to hear from you. Which myth about cheese surprised you the most today? And what is your personal experience with eating cheese after 60? Share your story in the comments. I will choose 3 of your answers to pin or read aloud in our next video. Cheese has been misunderstood for a long time, but now you have the tools to enjoy it wisely. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again in the next video.